Hi, I'm Daniel Gold, and welcome to the Gold Standard Leadership Lab. By day, I'm a partner at a leading advisory firm where I draw upon my background as an attorney to help my clients succeed. This podcast, though, is my personal project, completely separate and apart from my day job, but reflects the same passion that I exhibit everywhere for teaching, mentoring, and helping others succeed through simple, impactful lessons. It is my hope that you'll walk away with practical takeaways to help you on your leadership journey. Thanks for being a part of this community and for joining me in the Leadership Lab. Let's get started. They say what goes around comes around. But it turns out that's not really what karma means. And I wouldn't have known that if it weren't for my meditation practice. A quick sidebar on that. I've been using the Calm app for years. It's one of those tools that taught me how to build a consistent meditation habit, and I recommend it to anyone that is willing to try. Now, nobody's paying me to say that. I just believe in what they have built so much. And so during a recent sitting with Tamara Levitt on the app, she started talking about the origins of karma. And as I sat with it, I realized how deeply the actual meaning of this word connects to the gold standard leadership mindset of reinvention, resilience, and empowerment. And that's exactly what we're going to get into today. So somewhere along the way, karma entered mainstream American culture as a kind of spiritual vending machine. You do something bad and the universe punishes you. You do something good, and you get a reward. The word karma, though, actually comes from Sanskrit, and it literally translates to one simple thing: action. That's it. It's not revenge, not cosmic scorekeeping, just the word for your deeds. In fact, in the earliest texts, going back roughly 3,000 years, karma referred to the physical act of performing a ritual. It carried no moral or ethical weight at all. But over the centuries, the concept evolved. Thinkers and philosophers began connecting the dots between action and consequence. The idea then expanded. Your repeated choices, your patterns of behavior, your intentions shape what comes back to you. It became a principle of cause and effect applied to human character. And here is what really fascinated me. This isn't just one tradition's idea. Hinduism has it, Buddhism refined it, Judaism has its own deeply embedded version called measure for measure, the principle that how you treat others is ultimately how you'll be treated. Christianity captures it as well with you reap what you sow. So every major wisdom tradition that has seriously examined human behavior has arrived at some version of the same conclusion. Your actions carry weight. That weight accumulates, and that accumulation shapes the world you end up living in. And somewhere along the way, it got simplified to what goes around comes around, which isn't necessarily wrong exactly. It's just really incomplete, because karma was never about waiting for the universe to settle scores. It was about recognizing that you are being shaped by every choice that you make, whether anyone is watching or not. Now, I can already hear some of you. Daniel, this sounds like spiritual stuff. What does this have to do with leading a team in professional services? Fair question. Let's look at what the research actually says. So this is interesting. Researchers at UC Riverside conducted a study in a corporate workplace assigning employees to perform acts of kindness for colleagues. So what happened? Well, the people on the receiving end became happier over the following 2 months. The givers became less depressed and more satisfied in their work. And you want to know the most striking finding? The people on the receiving end started paying it forward with 278% more prosocial behavior. One act of genuine generosity created a measurable ripple through an entire organization. Now, if that sounds familiar to you, it should, because we talked about this back in episode 12, called From Ripples to Waves, where we explored how small leadership behaviors create massive momentum. Now, we have the hard science showing exactly how that momentum builds. Now, a series of experiments with over 3,500 participants found that simply thinking about karma, just thinking about it, reduced selfish behavior across religious backgrounds. So this worked for people who identified as Hindu, Buddhist, Christian, and non-religious. The effect was very specific. It shifted people who were inclined toward selfishness toward fairness. It didn't change people who were already fair because they didn't need the correction. And a major review of social exchange theory found that reciprocity, the idea that you get what you give, operates as a near universal moral norm in human behavior. The research draws a direct line between this reciprocity principle and the very concept of karma. And the flip side is just as real. When people give in good faith and don't receive reciprocity, the result is diminished trust, weakened social support, and measurable stress-related health effects. That is karma operating in real time inside your workspace with data to back it up. So what does this tell us? It tells us that the ancient wisdom traditions point to this. The neuroscience and behavioral research all confirm it. But okay, let's say you're still skeptical. Fair. You don't buy this whole spiritual framing. Fair. You're not persuaded by a few academic research studies. Also fine. But let me ask you a different question. And I'm serious when I'm asking you this question. Why wouldn't you try this? Even if you don't subscribe to any of these religions, you don't believe in a deity, and you think karma is nothing more than a very nice idea and something you find on a mug, the underlying concept is spot on for how we treat one another, both in personal life and, of course, at work. The principle that your repeated actions shape your character, your relationships, and the outcomes doesn't require belief in anything at all that is supernatural. It just requires paying attention to how human beings actually work. You may remember in episode 35, Why Workplace Civility Training Misses the Point, I talked about how the workplace doesn't need more corporate policies. What it needs is more people willing to be decent, direct, and brave. That episode struck a nerve because people are starving for authentic connection. They are tired of the performance theater and the calculated kindness that evaporates the second it becomes inconvenient. You know, there's this incredible book series that I want to recommend called The Go-Giver. It's by Bob Burg and John David Mann. Now, again, I get nothing for promoting this book, other than I really want you to go out and read it. And the premise is really straightforward. A young professional named Joe is struggling with his career, and he meets a mentor who teaches him the 5 laws of success. Now, every single one of those laws is built around giving and not getting. Your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment. Your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. The most valuable gift you have to offer is your authentic self. It is karma repackaged as a brilliant business parable. I've read the entire series of those books, and again, I encourage all of you listeners to go and pick it up. And the concept of the Go-Giver aligns perfectly with what we explored in episode 25, the power of giving, where we discussed that leadership is defined by what you give away rather than what you accumulate, because giving compounds like interest. The delayed return is often more meaningful than the immediate one. And look, The point is really this. Whether you call it karma, you call it measure for measure, the ripple effect, or just being a decent human, every framework arrives at the same conclusion. How you show up for other people is the single most reliable predictor of how your career and your life will unfold over time. So, how do we apply this to the gold standard leadership framework? It comes down to your patterns. The karma, if you will, of your career is the accumulated weight of your patterns. We talked in episode 8, What is Your Legacy?, about how you want to be remembered. Karma is the mechanism that builds that legacy. It is the accumulated weight of your daily micro decisions, how you treat the junior analyst, whether you give credit in meetings to others, and what you do when nobody's watching. People are always observing, evaluating, and responding to your patterns as a leader. Your reputation is being built every day by those patterns, whether you are aware of it or not. You are not permanently defined, though, by your worst decisions. And that is the most amazing thing. Let me say that again. You are not permanently defined by your worst decisions. One of the most powerful ideas of measure for measure is the concept of course correction and genuine repair. You are not locked into your worst patterns forever. You can acknowledge harm, repair relationships, and change your behaviors. And the test is real. Genuine repair requires you to face the exact same situation again and choose differently. That's how you know the change is real. And so for leaders, this means extending grace to your team when they have made mistakes. It means holding yourself to the same standard. When you've been the one who caused harm, whether through neglect, poor judgment, or simply not showing up when it mattered, the karmic question isn't, will I get caught? The question is, next time I face the same situation, what will I choose? In episode 37, The Leadership of I Got This, we talked about what it looks like to absorb someone's burden on your team in a single moment. Taking the weight off your team's shoulders so that they can focus on their best work, that's karma in action, one decision at a time. When that becomes your pattern, when I got this stops being an isolated moment and starts being who you are, that is the leadership of karma at work. Now, I'll be fully transparent with you. Part of what drew me to this topic is actually personal. I've been in professional situations where I have invested significant time, energy, and good faith into business relationships that just didn't reciprocate. And I experienced what the research described as failed reciprocity, where you give in good faith and what comes back, well, doesn't really match what you put in. Now, there's no doubt that this stings because you start questioning whether doing the right thing actually even matters. And here's where the real meaning of karma saved me from bad headspace. Because karma doesn't ask, when will they get what's coming to them? Because that's revenge. That's not karma. Karma forces you to ask, did this experience change who I am, or did I stay consistent with my values? My most trusted team member is fond of saying, if you put enough good stuff out there in the universe, you'll get good stuff back. And for a long time, I heard that as a nice, optimistic sentiment. But now I hear it as a behavioral strategy backed by thousands of years of philosophical insight and confirmed by modern psychology. The people who consistently put good into the world, who invest in others, who act with integrity, even when it's inconvenient, they don't always win in the short term. Over time, the accumulation works in their favor, not because the universe, though, is keeping a ledger. Because people are. Because your team is. because your own character is. And there is no scenario where leading with genuine care, consistent integrity, and radical engagement is ever going to be the wrong strategy. The universe, if you will, doesn't need to keep score. Why? Because your clients, your peers, and your team, they are already doing it. Karma is what happens when your daily micro decisions accumulate into something much bigger than any single moment. It's what happens when I got this becomes who you are. So I have some reflection questions for you. The first, what patterns are you running as a leader right now? If someone studied your last 100 micro decisions, what would they conclude about your values? Next, when was the last time you did the right thing knowing you'd never get credit for it? And how did that feel? Then, are you leading with attachment to recognition or an attachment to the work itself and the people doing it? I want you to think about those questions, and I want to give you a challenge for this week. This week, do one thing for someone on your team or in your professional network where there's absolutely zero expectation of a return. A genuine act of support because it's the right thing to do. And when you do that, notice what happens. Not to them, to you. Notice how it shifts something internally. Because when you do, that is karma working in real time. And remember, leadership, it isn't about perfection. It is about progress. Take this lesson, put it into action, and continue setting the gold standard in your own life and at work. I'll see you all next time.